On our wedding night, my wife Sarah wouldn't let me touch her. She said she was too tired and asked me to wait a while. But every night in the dead of night, she'd sneak downstairs to the basement. When she returned, she'd always shower, and an eerie, unsettling smell would cling to her. I asked her what she was doing. She said she was doing yoga. Yoga? In the middle of the night? I couldn't take it anymore. One night, I secretly followed her down to the basement. She spotted me, spun around, and grabbed the collar of my pajamas, yelling, "Get up here. You can't go into the basement. Otherwise we're getting a divorce." I clutched the stair railing, trembling with anger. This is my home. Why can't I go into my own basement? I took a deep breath, trying to keep my cool. "Sarah, is that how you talk to me?" Sarah still had a tight grip on my pajama collar, her slender fingers surprisingly strong. "Mark, let's go upstairs first. I'll explain everything in the bedroom. You can't explain it here." I pointed to the pitch-black basement below. "Why can't I go down there? Don't I have a right to know? It's not time to share it yet." He stepped down a few stairs, blocking my path with her body. "Why?" "Because it's just not the right time. When it's ready for you to see. I promise I'll show you." My gut twisted with frustration. I took another deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. "If that's the case, did you really have to snap at me like that?" She bit her lip. "I was just a little worked up. You know. Besides, you know I'm direct. You're used to that." I scuffed and turned to go upstairs. Fine. I'd wait until she left for work tomorrow. Then I'd check out what was really going on down there. Back in bed, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. There had to be something fishy going on in that basement. Something serious. Was it a secret Sarah didn't want anyone to know? I looked at her. She was also awake, staring at the ceiling, lost in thought. Finally, I couldn't hold back. I reached out, wanting to gently caress her cheek. "What are you doing?" She pulled away like she'd been burned, glaring at me with disgust. The kind of look you give. Something revolting. I spun around, glaring at her. "You said you needed time. That we couldn't be too intimate yet. And I get that. But why such a strong reaction when I just touched you? How many times have I explained this? It's a psychological thing. I'm looking for a therapist, aren't I?" She tapped me with her phone. Not even her hand. Was I really that repulsive to her? Could I even believe her? But right then, I had no choice but to wait. I sighed and rolled over. It all had to connect to that basement. I had to find out what was going on. Morning came as usual. I made breakfast. Sarah's favorite. She stayed distant, eating silently without a word to me. Felt like I was her maid, not her husband. After breakfast, I drove her to work. We both worked in sales at the same perfume company, Serenity Scents. After parking, she walked into the building. Once she was out of sight, I quickly told a coworker I'd be out and left the office. I didn't take my car. Instead, I hailed a cab home. I unlocked the front door, rushed into the living room, and headed straight for the basement. When I got there, I froze. The basement door was different. At some point, it had been replaced with a reinforced door with a combination lock. Without the code, there was no way in. Pulled out my phone, took a picture of the door, and started looking up how to open this kind of lock. "What are you doing?" Sarah suddenly appeared at the top of the stairs, yelling. She hadn't trusted me and had followed me home. She practically ran down the stairs and slapped me hard across the face. "What did I tell you? You hit me." I held my stinging cheek. She continued to yell. "What did I tell you?" I yelled back. "This is my house. Don't I have the right to go in? And you couldn't even tell me. You were changing the door. I was just about to tell you." She raised her hand, ready to strike again. I dodged the slap and pulled out my phone. "I'm calling the cops." Sarah panicked immediately, grabbing my hand. "Why are you calling the police? This is my house. Why won't you let me in? Why did you hit me just now? Why can't I call the police?" I insisted on dialing 911. "Mark, don't get so upset." Her voice softened. I was just acting on impulse. You get impulsive, so you hit me." I pulled my hand away. "Let go. I'm calling the police." She grabbed my hand again. "Mark, is calling the police really necessary? If you think this isn't working, we can get a divorce." "Divorce?" Hearing that, I stepped back and fell silent. Things were bad, but I didn't think we were at divorce level yet. Besides, if we split this house, marital property would probably get divided, and my parents' investment would go to waste. There was no way I was letting that happen. "If we get divorced, I'll get half this house." Sarah added, "If you don't want a divorce, we keep things the way they were. Now go back to work." After thinking it over, I shot her a dirty look and headed upstairs. I had no choice. I couldn't let my parents' savings go to waste. "Come back." I stopped and turned around. "You disrespected me. Don't you think you owe me an apology and a promise?" Sarah demanded. I was so mad. I punched the stair railing. Blood started gushing from my hand. I gave her one last angry look and left quickly. "Mark, what's up? You look terrible." When I got back to the office, my coworker David asked. I mumbled I was fine, sat down and opened my laptop. My right hand was bandaged, so I had to use my left. I kept my right hand under the desk so David wouldn't see it. "Hey." David came over, sat next to me, clapped my shoulder and winked. "Don't overdo it on the honeymoon, man. You look exhausted." I forced a laugh. If only that were the problem. Tomorrow's Saturday, and we've got that team building thing. It's family friendly, so they want everyone to bring their spouse or partner. David reminded me. Missing the main activities could mess with our team's evaluation and bonus. I didn't care about team building, but I didn't want to lose my bonus. Sarah, though, loved this stuff. She never missed company events. If Sarah goes, I'll go, I said. I just asked her, and she's not going. If that's the case, you two will lose this month's bonus. I'll go talk to her. I stood up and walked to the next cubicle area where she worked. I went in and saw her chatting with two female co-workers. I walked right up to Sarah and quietly asked, "Are you going to the company team building event?" "No," she answered coldly. I whispered again, "If you don't go, we'll lose our bonus. So what if we do? I just don't think we need to throw away money over this." "Are you serious?" Sarah suddenly yelled. "I'm staying home." End of story. Her voice echoed through the office and everything went quiet. All the co-workers stared at me shocked. My face burned. I wanted to crawl under a rock. In that moment, all my fantasies about Sarah died. Mark. Hey, sorry I pushed you about that earlier. When I got back to my desk, put his arm around my shoulder and apologized quietly. "It's fine." I suddenly remembered something. Picked up my phone and sent him a picture. "David, you know a lot of people. Can you help me figure out how to open this kind of reinforced combination lock door?" David checked his phone, looked at it for a second, and nodded. "Sure. I know a guy who does this stuff. I'll ask him for you." Evening came again. While making dinner, I checked the security camera app on my phone. Just like this morning, the camera was still broken. Had Sarah done this on purpose? I finished cooking and brought the food to the dining room. Sarah got home carrying a cake, but she was acting weird, hiding it from me, tucking it away in the pantry. I caught a glimpse anyway. A fancy French mousse cake. I paused it. Wasn't her birthday or mine. What was she up to? She didn't say. And I didn't ask. During dinner we barely spoke. She acted like a restaurant customer. Me like the server. By bedtime, my right hand needed a new bandage. I carefully unwrapped it, put on antiseptic cream, and rebandaged it myself. Sarah lay next to me, completely ignoring me. "By the way, Mark, what have you decided?" Sarah suddenly asked. I was startled. "Decided about what?" "About the divorce, I mean. Have you thought about it?" she asked again. I scoffed. What was she really after? Did she marry me just for this? I shot back. "What do you think? Do you want a divorce?" Sarah stayed quiet. "If you're not happy with our marriage, just say so," I said flatly. "I won't stop you." Sarah's expression darkened. She suddenly turned away from me. "Go to sleep. Just go to sleep. You said to give you time. That once your psychological issues got better, things would be fine. Remember?" I said pointedly. "We'll see," she said sharply. "I'm tired. Just go to sleep." I finished getting ready for bed, turned off the light, and lay down. We shared a bed, but lived separate lives. This was pure torture, but for now I had to tough it out. I must have dozed off without realizing it. Maybe it was muscle memory or just my subconscious at work. But I woke up in the middle of the night. Moonlight filtered into the bedroom. Not bright, but enough to see by. I turned my head and Sarah was gone. She must have snuck down to the basement for her yoga again. As I rolled over to get up, I heard a clink, and my left wrist suddenly felt heavy. I tugged and saw a silver handcuff locked around at the other end, chained tightly to the bedpost. Clank. I pulled with all my strength. My wrist burned, but it wouldn't budge. Are you kidding me? I was livid. Sarah had handcuffed me just to go to the basement. She wasn't even treating me like a person. Just then I heard footsteps outside. Sarah was back in a split second. I flopped back down, pretending to be sound asleep. A minute later, Sarah tiptoed over and sat carefully on the edge of the bed. She gently lifted my left hand. The metal was cold against my wrist, but not as cold as the feeling spreading through my chest. Through slitted eyes, I watched Sarah. She was wearing a silk robe I had never seen before, something expensive, dark crimson, almost black in the moonlight. She held a tiny key between her thumb and forefinger. With the precision of a surgeon, she unlocked the cuff. Click. She didn't take the handcuff off completely. Instead, she left it dangling from the bedpost, tucking it under the pillow as if it were a dirty secret. Then she slid into bed beside me. The smell hit me instantly. It wasn't sweat from yoga. It wasn't the clean scent of soap. It was metallic, earthy, like wet copper and old soil. And beneath that, faint but unmistakable, the cloying sweetness of the French mousse cake she had brought home earlier. She turned her back to me and was asleep within minutes. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. My wife wasn't doing yoga. She was handcuffing me to the bed to do what? Eat cake in a reinforced basement? I looked at my bandaged hand. The throbbing pain was a grounding anchor. David, I thought. David said he knew a guy. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning was a Saturday. Sarah was in a surprisingly good mood. She hummed while making coffee, ignoring the dark circles under my eyes. "I'm going to run some errands," she announced, grabbing her purse. "Don't wait up. Taking the cake with you?" I asked, my voice raspy. She froze at the door, her back to me. "I ate it last night. I got hungry." "Right. Yoga works up an appetite." She didn't respond to the sarcasm, just walked out. The second her car pulled out of the driveway, I called David. "Hey Mark, you okay? You sounded weird yesterday." "I need that guy, David. The one who can open locks. I need him now." David hesitated. "Mark, is this legal? I don't want to get involved in a domestic dispute." "It's my house, David. My name is on the deed. I lost the combination. Please. An hour later, a van pulled up. A guy named Tiny, who was actually enormous, stepped out with a toolbox. Reinforced steel core, digital keypad with a biometric override. Tiny grunted, inspecting the basement door. Serious hardware. You keeping gold bars down there? Just old furniture. I lied. Can you open it? Give me 20 minutes. It took 40. When the lock finally clicked and the heavy door swung open, a wave of cold air rushed out. It smelled damp. Stale. Thanks, I said, handing Tiny a wad of cash. I'll take it from here. Tiny looked at the dark stairs, then at me. My advice? Leave the door open. You don't want to get locked in from the inside with whatever needed that kind of security. He left. I stood at the top of the stairs. I pulled out my phone, turned on the flashlight and descended. The basement wasn't a basement anymore. The concrete floor had been covered in plush, dark red carpet. The walls were draped in heavy velvet curtains. In the center of the room, there wasn't a yoga mat. There was a shrine. It looked like something out of a twisted history museum. A large, ornate table sat in the middle, covered in candles that had burned down to nubs. In the center of the table was a large, framed photograph. I stepped closer, the light trembling in my hand. The photo was of a man. He was young, maybe my age. Handsome in a rugged way, with piercing blue eyes. He was wearing a military uniform. Surrounding the photo were offerings. Flowers that were starting to wilt. A plate with a slice of the French mousse cake, half-eaten. A glass of red wine. And a mannequin. I stifled a scream. Sitting in a chair next to the shrine was a life-sized male mannequin. It was dressed in pajamas, my pajamas. The ones I had lost last week. But the face. The mannequin's face had a photo taped over it. The same man from the shrine. On the wall behind the shrine, written in what looked like red lipstick, were the words, "Forever yours." My stomach churned. Who was this guy? An ex-boyfriend? A dead husband I didn't know about? I moved the light around the room. In the corner, there was a small cot. The sheets were rumpled. She sleeps down here, I realized. She comes down here to sleep next to him. I walked over to a small wooden box on the table. I opened it. Inside were letters. Dozens of them. I picked one up. It was dated 2 days ago. My dearest Julian. He is getting annoying. He asks too many questions. He touched me today, and I almost vomited. I just need his money a little longer, my love. Once the life insurance policy matures in 6 months, I can join you properly. We can buy the cottage by the sea. I keep him handcuffed so he can't interrupt our time together. Soon, I won't have to worry about locks. Soon he'll just be gone. The paper slipped from my fingers. Life insurance. She wasn't just grieving an ex. She was planning to kill me. I heard the front door upstairs open. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced through my shock. She was back early. I looked at the heavy steel door. If I ran up now, she'd see me. If I stayed. Mark. Her voice drifted down from the living room. Mark. Why is there a strange van driving away from our house? Footsteps. She was coming to the basement door. I looked around frantically. There was nowhere to hide except behind the heavy velvet curtains. I squeezed myself into the corner, praying she wouldn't see my feet. The footsteps stopped at the top of the stairs. Mark. Silence. Then a gasp. She had seen the open door. She ran down the stairs. I held my breath. Through a crack in the curtains, I watched her. She didn't look for an intruder. She ran straight to the shrine. She dropped her grocery bags and fell to her knees in front of the photo. Julian. Oh God, Julian, did he touch you? She frantically adjusted the photo, smoothing out invisible wrinkles. She grabbed the mannequin's hand and pressed it to her cheek. It's okay. It's okay. I'm here. Then she stood up. Her demeanor changed instantly. She wasn't the weeping widow anymore. She was a predator. She walked to the table and picked up the letter I had dropped. She saw it was out of the box. Mark, she said, her voice terrifyingly calm. I know you're down here. I didn't move. You read it, didn't you? She turned slowly, scanning the room. You know, this really ruins my timeline. I wanted you to have a few more happy months. Ignorance is bliss, isn't it? She walked toward the cot. Then she turned toward the curtains. Come out, husband. I stepped out. There was no point in hiding. I held my phone up, recording. Who is Julian? I asked, my voice steady despite the terror gripping my throat. Sarah smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Julian was the only man I ever loved. He died 3 years ago. A car accident. Unfair, isn't it? So I'm just, what? A piggy bank. You're a placeholder, she said, shrugging. You have his build. You have his hair color. From the back, in the dark, you look just like him. That's why I married you. But you talk too much. Julian never complained. You're insane. I'm devoted, she corrected. She reached into her pocket. I tensed, expecting a knife. Instead, she pulled out a taser. I really didn't want to do this today, she sighed. She lunged. I dodged to the left, but I was slow. The taser grazed my arm. Crack. Pain exploded in my shoulder, and my arm went numb. I stumbled back, knocking over the mannequin. Don't touch him. Sarah shrieked, her composure shattering. She swung the taser again. I kicked out, catching her in the stomach. She stumbled back, hitting the shrine table. The candles wobbled. One fell onto the velvet tablecloth. The fabric, old and dry, caught fire instantly. Fire! I yelled. Sarah, get out! No. She ignored the flames licking up the table. She grabbed the photo of Julian. I can't leave him. The fire spread to the curtains. The room was filling with smoke. I ran for the stairs. Sarah, come on. She looked at me, her eyes wild. The fire was reflecting in her pupils. She looked at the exit, then back at the shrine. She grabbed the mannequin. She was trying to drag the life-size doll toward the stairs. Let it go. I screamed, coughing. He's not in it, she screamed back. The fire alarm upstairs finally started blaring. The heat was becoming unbearable. I made a choice. I wasn't going to die for a ghost. I scrambled up the stairs. I reached the top and looked back. The flames had engulfed the bottom of the staircase. Sarah was trapped. Help me, she cried, finally realizing the danger. She reached out a hand. I hesitated. The image of the handcuffs, the letter about my death, the cold calculation in her eyes. It all flashed before me. But I was human. I grabbed the fire extinguisher from the hallway and sprayed it down the stairs, clearing a path through the flames. Run, I bellowed. She dropped the mannequin. She scrambled up the stairs, coughing, her face blackened with soot. We stumbled into the living room and out the front door just as the basement windows blew out from the heat. We sat on the curb, watching the firefighters battle the blaze. The neighbors were out whispering. The police had arrived. Sarah sat wrapped in a blanket, shivering. She wasn't looking at the house. She was staring at her hands. You saved me, she whispered. Yeah, I said, nursing my burnt arm. I did. Why? I was going to kill you. Because I'm not you, I said simply. A police officer approached us. Sir, Mom, we need a statement. And the fire chief says they found some unusual items in the basement. A lot of candles. A mannequin. I looked at Sarah. She looked at me. My wife, I said, my voice loud and clear, has been having a mental breakdown. She needs help. Sarah looked at me shocked. She expected me to turn her in for attempted murder. And I would. But not yet. Officer, I continued, pulling my phone out of my pocket. I have a video recording I think you should see. And a letter. Sarah's eyes widened. She tried to lunge for the phone, but the officer stepped in between us. Ma'am, sit down. I showed the officer the video of her confession. I showed him the photo of the letter I had taken before she came downstairs. Sarah didn't fight. She just slumped on the curb and started to cry. Not for her freedom, but for Julian. He's gone, she sobbed. His shrine is gone. 6 months later. The divorce was finalized quickly. Since Sarah was currently in a secure psychiatric facility awaiting trial for conspiracy to commit murder and insurance fraud, she didn't exactly fight for the assets. The house was a loss. The fire damage was extensive, and frankly, I didn't want to live there anymore. I sold the lot to a developer and split the proceeds with. Well, the lawyers took most of her half. I moved into a small apartment in the city. No basement. I was still working at Serenity Scents. David had bought me a beer the day the news broke. I told you not to overdo it on the honeymoon, he had joked darkly. I was in therapy now. Turns out, being married to a woman who wants to sacrifice you to her dead lover gives you some trust issues. One evening, I was walking home from work. I passed a yoga studio. Through the window, I saw a class in session. I stopped. I watched the instructor adjusting a student's pose. It wasn't Sarah, obviously, but it reminded me of the lie she told. She said she was doing yoga. I laughed. A bitter, short sound. I kept walking. My phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. I opened it. There was no text. Just a picture. It was a photo taken from across the street. A photo of me, standing in front of the yoga studio just now. My blood ran cold. Then a second text. He didn't die in a car accident, Mark. He's very upset you burned his things. I stared at the screen. Julian? I dialed the number immediately. It rang once, then disconnected. I looked around the busy street. Faces blurred. Was someone watching me? I remembered the mannequin. The photo. Forever yours. Sarah was in a high-security ward. She couldn't have sent this. Unless Julian wasn't dead. Unless the shrine wasn't for a dead man, but for a man in hiding. A man she was supporting. A man she was going to kill me for, so they could run away together with the insurance money. I started to run. I didn't go home. I went to the police station. I need to speak to Detective Miller, I told the desk sergeant, breathless. It's about the Sarah Vance case. Detective Miller is off duty. Call him. It's an emergency. While I waited, my phone buzzed again. Another picture. This time, it was of my apartment door. We're waiting for you, Mark. I looked at the phone, my hands shaking. I wasn't the victim of a grieving widow. I was the target of a couple of psychopaths. And the game wasn't over. Epilogue, the hunter. I didn't go back to my apartment. The police raided it an hour later. They found the door unlocked. Inside, sitting on my couch, was a mannequin. It was wearing my clothes. But this time, the face taped to it was mine. And a knife was stuck in its chest. Julian was real. And he was out there. I quit my job the next day. I withdrew my savings. I moved to a different state, bought a burner phone, and changed my name. I'm not Mark anymore. I live in a small town now. I work in a hardware store. I check the locks on my doors 3 times a night. Sometimes late at night, I think about Sarah. I wonder if she knew he was alive the whole time. I wonder if the psychotic break was just an act to protect him when the plan went south. I'll never know. But I know one thing. I don't have a basement. And I never ever do yoga.